All right. Well, good morning. Good morning. And we're going to talk about talent and diversity in this session. My name is Znavor. I'm managing director at BlackRock. Very focused not only in this segment, but in particular in what we're doing in the Southeast and FinTech South. Very, very happy to be here. I'm going to have a colleague of mine, Samara Cohen, also join. And we're going to talk a little bit about not only the importance of talent and diversity, but more importantly, what does that mean at BlackRock? And for everyone out there, who is BlackRock? And many of you may have heard the name. Certainly, I've seen the firm. Certainly, in during financial crises, we do have a tendency to come in and help solve the problems and provide guidance and oversight. But quite frankly, BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager, and it's a technology firm. And it's a firm that started with both of those the clear footing. But the way that we thought about technology and investment management absolutely has changed over time. And it's come from not only diverse thought, but by being bold, by taking action. And I think for everyone here today, if there's a couple of takeaways I hope you get from the conversation, it'll be pretty open. Samara and I have worked and been at BlackRock respectively a long time. But Samara's journey is quite interesting in that she was one of the earliest employees at the firm, left, came back, and all the things that I'm going to tell you about BlackRock and how we approach these problems that I've actually been able to see and grow and develop through that time. She was able to see it early, leave, come back, so she can actually provide the truth and say, okay, no, this is actually how the firm has operated. Look, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that BlackRock as an asset management firm is rooted in technology by saying the vision of the firm was, how do we take insight that was only available for really the sell side of the asset management industry or the wealth management industry, and sell side meaning stocks and bonds that are being created. And that's where the founders of the firm actually were. They were on the side that was selling investments, and rather they were selling them to wealth management firms that were helping manage pensions, endowments, foundations, DC plans, 401k plans. They were saying, look, if we're selling these securities to firms that are managing assets for retirees, we have such wonderful technology to build these investments. And this is even back in 1988 when the firm founded. What if we had that same level of technology to manage assets and think about risk management and think completely differently? And I'm taking you into the early days of BlackRock. And how that manifested was having a firm that was thinking about not only technology, investment management, single sources of truth of data, access to data in a real-time basis. I mean, these are concepts that seem so normal today, but back in 1988, it was pretty revolutionary. Furthermore, the way that we changed the investment landscape, BlackRock itself has been a firm that's evolved over time, which means by nature, you're going to have different people, different perspectives. Going through mergers and acquisitions, you have different companies and cultures come together, and that diverse thought and those diverse set of individuals coming in and coming together. But if you think about where the firm is today, it really is that blend of both technology and investment management. If you think about the institutional side, that's where we would be managing money for teachers, firemen, police, many of the largest, companies in the world, and some of the education sector as well. When we think about what we were doing on the institutional side, we were bringing this investment management element, the technology component, and that's an area that I actually spent about 10 years at BlackRock. And I've been very, very fortunate to come into where the firm has been in the last 6-7 years, which is everything we've done for our firm using technology, a system called Aladdin, taking it and bringing it from the institutional market and running BlackRock to now the wealth management market, bringing it to financial advisors who can then help their end clients. And I say these things so kind of easily, but those are big chasms to cross over. These are big areas to say, wow, we're going to sell to large institutions, but now how do we bring that to individual advisors solving problems? Well, the problems are the same, but the way that you bring that information is quite different. That really, if you think about everyone here, is the essence of technology. Being able to make those complicated questions very easy to understand, making them repeatable, making them something that can actually be solved as opposed to a problem that just sits out there. So what I want to do is I'm going to start this off. We're going to have a little bit more of a free flow session. I'm going to have Samara talk about her background, her experience not only at BlackRock but also in the industry. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dovetail back to that. All right, we're going to say that the firm really evolved, and then we're going to say that it really happened. I'm going to come back and tell you actually it's happening for me right now, and how does that apply to all of you? Because it didn't happen without a diverse set of thought. So I'm going to talk Samara up just a little bit. She's a wonderful colleague and a friend. There's something at BlackRock we all believe in. It's called One BlackRock. It's a core principle of the firm. So it's everyone just really sharing that information and knowing a little bit about everyone and what they're doing. Samara is one of the most senior women in the ETF industry. She is one of our iShares ETF leaders. I think you were employee. Oh no, you were less than 100. You can go ahead and throw it out there. Samara had been at the firm very, very early days, and now at a firm with over 16,000 strong. To be able to have that perspective as an early entry into the firm, having left and then come back, it's a pretty amazing career arc. And actually, where our souls started to align was really taking pause of, oh my God, we did change this. We did cross those chasms. So, Samara, with that, let me open it up and share a little bit, and then we can go into talking a little bit about our experiences and where the firm's at today and where it's going.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ross. And it's really great to be here with you and with everyone virtually. I will tell you this, that we started sending people home to work from home in, really the week ending March 13th. And at that time, I had been planning to go and spend a week in Atlanta at our Atlanta office. I planned a whole offsite there. And I was really excited about it because it's Atlanta, and the work we're doing there is a huge part of our strategy globally, actually. And so it's first on my list for places I will be when we start to work in person again and travel. I'm actually in the New York City office now, so we are starting to slowly reopen in places. And now, to Ross's point, I'm not exactly below 100, but it's close. I'm employee number 134. And when I came back to BlackRock, my first time at BlackRock was 93. So not 88, but 5 years after the firm started. When I came back, when you line up with the new employees, the security guard did a double take when he looked at my ID, and he said, "Did you work here before?" And I said, "I did. How'd you know? Were you here 18 years ago?" And he said, "All these people have numbers that are in the 16,000s, and you're 134. So it turns out like you keep your employee number. So that is a badge of pride at BlackRock." But I'll tell you my story quickly, because I do think it tells you a lot about our firm. And that is, so in college, I didn't study, I didn't only study finance. I was always interested in markets, but really my leading degree and what I looked for when I decided where I wanted to go to college was theater programs. I was a theater major. I spent all of my summers working for regional theater companies. But I'm also a math person, and I ended up finding a program that let me be a dual degree with a BA in theater and a BS Econ in finance, and that just happened to be a perfect fit for me. But all of my summers I spent working for regional theater companies. And so when it came that time, to think about, okay, well, is this what I want to do? I had kind of a gut check moment. I worked for a very famous theater festival one summer, and I realized I like this way of big kind of collaborative working, but I'm not sure theater is the field I want to be in. And all of my kind of finance math friends were applying to Wall Street jobs. And I didn't, really know what they were, but I tried to do the research that I could through them and send out a bunch of applications to the big kind of starter jobs at that time, were a lot of the big Wall Street banks. Again, this was 1993. And then there was this firm called BlackRock. Now, at the time I applied, it was called Blackstone Financial Management, and there was a really popular and well-known private equity firm called the Blackstone Group. So to be totally honest with you, I kind of thought I was sending my resume to the Blackstone Group, and I didn't realize until the night before. This is totally true, Ross. Now, I don't think I've ever told it to this.
Guys, it's a fresh story. Totally, it's a completely fresh story.
Then the night before, I go to prepare for my interview, and there's no website, this is 93. I have to go to the Office of Career Services and read the binder that the company sent. And I realized this is an investment management firm, and I have to kind of recalibrate my whole shtick, what I think I'm going to say when I'm interviewed. But there was a story then that really resonated with me. And so basically, BlackRock was started by a group of real financial heavyweights and, whiz kids. who had created a lot of technology to analyze and trade mortgage-backed securities, which was a big differentiator in the US. The ability to securitize people's home loans allowed more people to get loans and buy homes, and it's something that to this day really differentiates the US markets. But this group of founders felt like, to Ross's point, we have this great technology, but it's being used in such an exclusive club to facilitate kind of buys and sells between very sophisticated investors and to make money for these, big banks. We'd like to bring this technology to investors to help them create better financial outcomes. It was a highly specialized niche. And so the amazing thing to me when I look back on the journey, which then took me away to business school and to work for a big bank, so I was gone for 18 years and back, we now have a very diversified set of businesses. But one thing that is constant is that sense of purpose. It is, we want to create, and actually now we've done a lot of work over the last few years to explicitly articulate our purpose. So our purpose at BlackRock now is to help more and more people experience financial well-being. Now that's a purpose statement that we really just articulated a couple of years ago, but it was absolutely intact and what drove the founders of the firm to create BlackRock. So it has been a constant over 33 years, although now I run markets and investments for our ETF business. And in 1993, the year I started at BlackRock was the year the first ETF in the US started trading. So I had no idea at that point what it was. So the how we go about executing on our purpose has, grown and diversified over 18 years, but that's what we come to work every day to do.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm just going to vibe off you a little bit, because guys, this is a totally like free form session, because this is what you want to hear.
I'm nervous about that fact, actually, but go.
No, so what's interesting here, so for all of you out there, you're looking at this and you're thinking, what is BlackRock? What do we do? Hopefully you're getting a sense. It's a very, very different company, and it's not a Wall Street firm that you're going to think about. It's very much a different firm. And if you think about Samara's career arc, well, I'll share a similar one. I started out in college with computer engineering. I was quite good at math, and all of a sudden I got into classes like fluids, and I'm sitting there going, what in the hell am I doing in this room? Like, I need to talk to people. So then I pivoted over to finance, and I went more of a traditional finance path. And for all of you here, I'm very wedded to the South. As Samara mentioned, she's in the New York office. I still work out of New York, but BlackRock being a very forward-thinking company, I'm talking to you live from St. Petersburg, Florida. My family is here, my son, my daughter, and little baby daughter. My in-laws live 5 minutes away, who one is a retired New York City firefighter, the other is a retired New York City school teacher, both of which two were accounts that I was on the institutional years, where you see this, what does BlackRock do, come to life. And I remember calling my father-in-law. I said, hey, Pop, I'm getting on the New York City firefighters account. This is years ago. And he's like, oh, Ross, that's great. Hey, don't screw it up. Make sure the check keeps coming. And it really brought everything to life. The point of it is, that's what we're doing is we have that purpose, and being able to get closer to that individual. And what we've been doing, to Samara's point, of going from really heady finance into going to individuals, going to the advisor, it allowed us to create this wonderful path. Now, that's very interesting as you think about a company from a purpose perspective. But listen to what Samara also mentioned. She came in at 93, very different background. The ETF was just born. She had no clue she was going to be in the incredible senior seat that she has, and with the responsibility of this business. Likewise, on my end, when I came into the firm, I went to the University of Central Florida. Look, going back 20 years ago, that was 20 years ago, BlackRock and most Wall Street firms weren't looking at state schools. It was the Ivy Leagues, et cetera. But I knew that I had a great opportunity, and I had also been doing work in a branch office that I just needed to get a toe in the door. And that's what I encourage all of you to do is, don't think about a firm like a BlackRock and say, oh, I can't get there. You would be shocked, the people who are getting in, because of the diverse set of talents that we're looking for. One of the reasons that I made it into the business that we're doing today, and really had spent time institutionally, and now we're in a business called Aladdin Wealth Tech. Aladdin being our operational portfolio management and infrastructure. We then position it to institutions. We then position it to our own firm. We're now bringing it to the retail market. but I'd spent many years on the institutional side that the vision was, how do we bring it to the retail market? Well, we had no clue. We had no clue, but we had to find out. And the way that we found out was by going out and hearing the needs of the clients. So what BlackRock is doing become quite consultative, where you're going out and finding out what clients are looking to solve. But more importantly, when we started to work with different types of people, it was, okay, well, how do we digitize it? Well, where are the programmers? Well, nobody had programming background. We were managing money. We were managing institutional assets. Or we had some programmers who were so focused on managing money and risk management that maybe they didn't know about user interface and how to have a great experience, or gamification, or all these elements that had become, again, so common, that BlackRock was actually doing that. And 7 years ago, we were incubating this Aladdin wealth tech business that now I'm looking at you, and we have over 100 plus clients. We have 4 major integrations. The point of it is, I can't even tell you the next 3 or 4 things that we're going to do, but I can tell you with certainty, it's not going to come with the same set of people and the same set of mindset. And that's what we're so excited about, where we're taking the business. In particular, to Samara's point, Atlanta. I'm excited because I get to pass through Atlanta. I come into the Atlanta office, working with some of the people there, being on part of the leadership team. One of the reasons we focused on Atlanta was innovation, was the talent pool. There was an incredible amount of time that was spent on, where would BlackRock create what we call our I hub, our innovation hub, innovation from a development perspective, innovation from a client perspective, innovation from a region perspective. And there's a lot focused on BlackRock in that region. And with over 300 people already in the region, and this is just in a short time, it's really exciting. And obviously that's where being here today, it makes it all come to life. But Samara, I had to, listening to some of those parallels of we have such different careers and different responsibilities. Certainly we know what we're all contributing to the greater purpose of the firm, and of course, obviously our financial goals and responsibilities as a public company. But it does build support to the fact that there really is no one path, is there, Samara?
There is definitely no one path. And to your point, I think I'm excited to see what we're doing, next year, in 5 years. I couldn't have told you 18 years ago what I'd be doing now. But looking back on it, still, I do think there are some constants, that I don't think like, this is after years of self-reflection, but probably reflection I could have done, and I would recommend that other people do earlier in their careers, about what their own kind of, or your own sense of purpose is. Because those are 2 things I think you want to know. Like, why does your company exist, or a company you're thinking of working at exist? Like, what would the world be like without them? That's kind of how I think about purpose. It's like, what does the world lose if you're not there? What are you trying to bring to the world? And also importantly, what does that mean for you? And then how does that connect into the company you're at, or the company that you're thinking about? Because, like, to your point, as much as our industry has evolved and our firm has evolved and the world has changed, I was passionate 25 years ago about making markets better and more accessible. And I'm passionate about that every day today. And the other thing I think I've articulated much more for myself in this last 5 years of my career, and this was true in theater as well, I'm passionate about assembling high-performing teams. Because when you get the right group of people together with complementary skills and diversity of thought and perspective, it's magic. And seeing the impact of those teams. And that is, I think that is one of the things that really drove me to theater. And by the way, I was never a performer. I was always a backstage person, kind of herding all of the cats, so to speak. But seeing how you could, again, put the right, and they always say casting is 95% of directing. Well, putting the right people in the right jobs is 95% of being a leader. And that is another thing that makes me want to come to work every day.
Well, I'm going to do 2 things here. I'm going to lead you with a question so you can think about it, but I want you to think about how you've changed your perspective on building teams. And then let me just, while you're gathering your thoughts, what's interesting of what you just said is, for all of you out there, BlackRock thrives on principles. We have our key principles. One, BlackRock, passionate for performance. I think you're passionate about 3 or 4 times out of Samara. She truly is, right? We are innovators, and the whole approach of bringing the firm together. So when you think about and how that all comes together, and what it leads to is a very flat organization. So a very BlackRock thing, you could be in a meeting and easily be sitting next to a GEC member, our global executive committee, really the handful of people that really guide the firm globally. And it is very, very often that you're sitting in there and you go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting here with Sue right now. Where did Sue walk in the room? And why is she so quiet? She's going to ask a hard question. I know that. The point is, it's very collaborative in nature, where you could be the most junior person in the room. Inappropriate, you got to know the right time to enter your idea, but people want to construct thought. So I bring you the principles, and I bring you an idea of how BlackRock operates, because it's all very true. Samara, you can call BS on that if you want to, but why it's important is when you go through the MD process, you have to like tattoo those principles to your forehead. When you become a managing director, it's like a whole thing. And you're also, BlackRock, when you're building teams, and tomorrow I'm going to come back to my question. When you're building teams, a lot of times, or even if you're having thought, BlackRock wants to have appropriate, challenging thought. So sometimes, as the role of an MD, you might come in, or that senior person, they may just kind of stir things up just to see the thought kind of come up, just to get people thinking more. But Samara, let me hand it to you. Knowing BlackRock, knowing how it operates like that, knowing that innovation is happening literally at any place whatsoever, and how we approach problem solving, how are you thinking differently about building teams, diversity? Is it, what comes to mind? Because it certainly has changed. That is for sure.
It has changed, and I want to thank you for your thoughtfulness in leading with the question, because I don't think I've ever been asked that one before. So I appreciate it. A few seconds.
You got to have time. Got to have a couple minutes.
Yeah, that was a good one. But I think the biggest change is that it kind of has to do with the myth, or at least the importance of experience, like specific technical functional experience, in this case in investing or asset management. Because when you're pushing the boundaries of what you're trying to do, and in the case of ETFs, be able to provide access to different types of strategies and different types of markets, sometimes the person who knows everything about how things work, or have worked for the last 10 years, is not the right person to get you to the next 5 to 10 years. And I think as a manager, as an interviewer, as a recruiter, untangling that has been a big area of personal growth for me, because especially when you move around and you grow in your career, I started from a place of deep subject matter expertise, and as I became responsible for more businesses, you lose some of that depth, and it can be very easy for somebody else to kind of talk the talk, and the ability to talk the talk or have the right words, on a resume, don't really correlate perfectly with the ability to do a job well. And that has been, I think, a huge learning for me. And even for me, I remember before I started my job, after business school, after BlackRock, I was starting on the trading floor as an interest rate derivatives structurer for a big bank. And this was work I was so excited about. There were very few women in the business, and the trading floor was very high energy, which I loved, but very intimidating. And I remember having dinner with a friend of mine the night before, saying how nervous I was, and I didn't know like how to say things. And he said, I said, I'm not sure. I said, I'm not sure I'm smart enough. Like, I'm not sure. I actually said that. He said, I think you're confusing experience with intelligence. And he's right. I was. But so I think for us, look, you have to be able to, certainly if you can't talk the talk, you have to be able to take the risk of sounding dumb. Because the thing I look for the most is somebody who's willing to say, but why? And why? And if you're not willing to ask the questions, it's very hard to grow and learn. But usually the person who's asking the questions does come up with this whole entire system, we could actually potentially rewire this and it would work a lot better. So I think for me, that's been a journey, but something that has been at play, particularly for me, and how I've been thinking about talent over the last few years.
and I'm going to lead to everyone. Look, we'll definitely open it up for a Q&A. So if you do have questions, you can either put them in the comments or reach out. I know we're going to try to grab some questions and answers if you have them. But Samara, you mentioned, being a female in this industry years ago to today, and everyone is like, oh my God, how hard is it? And more importantly, how is it that you're balancing it all? Family and this. What comes to mind? And resources, approaches, just mentality, or even from a BlackRock. BlackRock's very forward thinking in this one. The firm has been well ahead of the curve on a number of these things. But what's your perspective for for the audience out here thinking about a career and from a female perspective?
Sure, and I will say, I think some of my experience, which is highly informed over the past year as a woman, does translate for anybody, like for others and other diverse backgrounds. I think first of all, the things that as a mom, I've learned from a lot of my male colleagues, like there are things that are true just for parents. There is no such thing as balance. So whenever anybody says, how do you balance it all? I say, I don't. I just do my best to kind of, do the right thing on any particular day and hope it all works out. And I kind of gut check with my husband and my kids how it's going and recalibrate if I need to. But something that's really very top of mind for me right now, because McKinsey published a study that shows that women over the course of the pandemic are going part-time and leaving in bigger numbers than they have before. So I think this is a really important moment in time for us at BlackRock and all companies to kind of re-underwrite our commitment to diversity, and not just gender diversity, to gender diversity, to racial equity, and think about what has the pandemic meant and what do people need right now? Because the positive news is we've learned we can do a lot more than maybe we thought we could. You're a great example, Ross. Like, your family wanted to be in Florida. And a year ago, would we have thought you could do everything from Florida? I'm not sure, but now we know.
I still felt the pressure at that time, but now it's like in the rearview mirror, like, oh, well, hey, you actually figured out how to do this. I've been teaching people. I'm like, yeah, do this in the office. That's a travel day. Do that on a travel day. You got to balance yourself.
So there's a lot of power in that for a parent, but we have to think about too, like, what do they like? Okay, so let's say you can work at home. Do your kids have the internet connections that they need if they're working at home? Do you have the internet connection? Like I think what we do, I will say what we do at BlackRock that has made all the difference to me is I'm allowed to talk about it. And I was going through a very stressful situation. I actually still am. Back to school in New York City, I'll be honest, has been more complex and logistically challenging than virtual was. But I brought it up with my manager at just a couple of things that were plaguing me. And he listened and he actually gave me a good suggestion. But being able to talk about it, I think in the, 10 years ago, that was a sign of weakness. We don't view that as a sign of weakness. We view that as a sign of trust and commitment if somebody is clear about what they're going through and what they need. So I've been thinking a lot about how to foster that environment so that whatever the challenges, and there's a lot of them that people are really, suffering for lots of different reasons over this pandemic, how can we help and support? And I think if we do that, actually, this will be a really important juncture in our own talent strategy at BlackRock.
Well, I know we are coming up on time. So a couple of things. I don't know. I haven't seen any questions come through, but I do want to stay to the schedule. So first off, Samara, thank you. I mean, this was fantastic.
Fun.
We get to hang out all the time, but we never get to do something like, I'm just saying. Fintech South, we're back next year. Look, for all of you, we want to hear from you. The couple of things I would say is reach out. I would love to, see and hear from you. We want to hear about the jobs that you're interested in. You could always go to the BlackRock site. Unlike Samara, unfortunately, they didn't have websites to talk about the company back then. She had to piece it together. I will say for all of you, I've been very fortunate. I've been at BlackRock a long time. I've been able to be a hiring manager, going through analyst programs and all this and that. A couple of key things. Learn about the firm. Just know enough about the firm whenever you do want to make it. And this could be BlackRock, it could be any company you're going. Just learn enough. The difference between the people who just spend 5 minutes of homework, who get that next discussion, and then it's like, oh, we kind of like them. There's a good fit, and they have talent, and they're diverse. It's a huge difference. So for many of you who are thinking, hey, what about this company or that company? Hopefully you consider BlackRock. We would hope, but those are just a couple of things that are just 1-2s that are in your control. And secondarily, be bold, be questioning, because the last thing I want to share, I think, Samara, you actually hit the close very well when you're talking about being able to bring issues to the table. That is very BlackRock, in both how we're approaching our employees, how we're approaching issues. But back to that situation where you might have the GEC member in the room, BlackRock is all about, no, bring up the issue. It's okay. We're not going to judge that it's a crazy idea, because who knows where that next crazy idea would be. So with that, I think we're at time. Samara, be well. Good luck with the New York City school in and out. My son is still virtual. It's a whole thing. So Florida is just as bad. But for all of you, thank you for the opportunity today. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. Be well.